Greetings viewers. I was inspired to make this video in response to a pretty nasty piece of disinfo put out by a YouTuber called Orthodox Dog. And it's called Zionist Genocides on Serbs. And it's basically an attempt to supposedly prove that the Balkans wars of the 1990s, waged by NATO with their proxy allies in the Balkans such as the Ustashe and the KLA and so on, is the work of Zionist Jews working on behalf of the State of Israel. His video contains blatant anti-Semitic propaganda of a kind which fortunately has little traction among the Serbs, and that would be largely due to the Serbs' proud history of resistance to anti-Semitism and fascism in all its forms. So the main function of this kind of propaganda, I would think, is not really to try and convince Serbs of this so much, right? But to paint the Serbs with a Nazi brush, for propaganda purposes, and that'll make their defence more difficult. His video, it starts off with numerous scenes from the Croatian Ustashe genocide at Jasenovac. Now what any of that has got to do with Zionist Jews, I have no idea. Perhaps Orthodox Dog would like to explain. And it has various bits of text and so on throughout it, including things like CNN, which is run by Jews, showed the world dead Serbs as Croats killed by Serbs. Now that may be true. I wouldn't be surprised that if CNN did show that, right? But CNN is not run by Jews, and even if it were, that wouldn't really prove anything. And I've linked to an article that says, why do people say that the Jews control the media? They don't. And in that article it shows that the vast majority of the American media is run by Gentiles. And the few media outlets which are run by Jews, such as the New York Times, actually tend to attack the Jews. Like the New York Times during World War II covered up the Holocaust for as long as it could. Right? And it continues. CNN then threatened to sue CompuSerb for exposing the lie. Now that would be the same CompuSerb, I provide a link to the site, which is associated with the Serbian Defence League, which also links to one of the National Socialist sites. Basically, they're fascist websites masquerading rather badly as Serbian patriot sites. Right? More on them in a moment. It says stuff like 1989 US Congressman Lantos, Jew, promised Kosovo's Albanians that he will fight for them in the United States of America. 1993 Roy Gutman, Jew, lied about the Serbs. US Senator Feinstein, Jew, cited lies and voted to send US troops to Bosnia against her constituents. Against her constituents, I don't quite know what he means by that, really. US Secretary of State Albright, Jew. She was a leading American advocate of force against Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic. Albright's support for Israel was especially clear during more difficult times. 1999 General Wesley Clark, Jew, who of course he was in charge of the NATO forces bombing Serbia. But for a start, Wesley Clark is not a Jew. I think during the 2004 election campaign he made noises implying that he was, mainly to attract Jewish votes, but he's not a Jew in any meaningful sense of the word. And also all these various other Jews that he does cite, they're not working on behalf of world Jewry, and then, for that matter, they're not working on behalf of the State of Israel. They're working for the US power elite, or the global power elite. The fact that they're Jews is basically irrelevant. And it goes on to say, the Orthodox Doc's video, excerpt below proves that Jews took the side of Muslims in Bosnia and Kosovo in the interests of the State of Israel. And because they are Jews, they united in US Senate against Serbs. Well, for a start, if anyone wants to provide any evidence that the war in the Balkans benefited the State of Israel in any meaningful way, then please provide it, because I can't see how Israel has benefited from the Balkan wars at all. And in fact, at one stage, the Bosnian Serbs, who were suffering an arms embargo which the Serbian government imposed on them, were actually helped by the Israeli Mossad for whatever reasons. Right? Put quite simply, his video is a lot of blatant anti-Semitic nonsense and quite dangerous. For further reading on a lot of this stuff, I recommend a number of articles. Is the US an ally of Israel? A chronological look at the evidence. Because there's this popular notion that the United States is run by Zionists working for Israel, whereas in actual fact the United States is one of the most dangerous enemies Israel has, but it masquerades as an ally. And all of this with the complete knowledge and collusion of this thing which calls itself the Israeli government, I might add. Right? The problem of Jewish self-defense, that's a series on how Jewish leaders, so-called, tend to cooperate with anti-Semitic Gentile ruling elites against the Jews. It's a huge series and it documents numerous cases of this. And this is important because it is certainly true, and I can understand why a lot of Serbs might feel betrayed by the Jews, because a number of so-called Jewish organisations and so-called Jewish leaders did indeed spread lies about the Serbs. And seeing people tend to associate Jews with experts on genocides, they tended to believe it. Right? But the important thing to remember is that these so-called Jewish leaders also tend to attack Israel and Jews generally while pretending to defend them. What is AIPAC for? It's the America-Israel Political Action Committee or whatever. Does the so-called Jewish lobby produce pro-Israeli US foreign policy or the opposite? Reply to Mearsheimer and Waltz, the Israel lobby. Very good article. And what I was saying earlier about tarring the Serbs with a fascist brush or a Nazi brush, Jared Israel of Emperor's Clothes highlight a lot of this. And here's another thing. I mean, Jared Israel is a Jew, and he was like one of the main people in the West who highlighted the propaganda being waged against the Serbs. So, where does that fit into Orthodox Dog's ideology? It doesn't. Apologists for fascism have become the public voice of Slobodan Milosevic. This is an attempt to tar the Serbs. With supposed friends like Jackie Verges, Ramsey Clark and Mick Collins, the Serbs do not need enemies. And there's a whole heap of other articles, I won't read them all out, I'll put them in the description column, which goes to show all these people, who claim to be pro-Serb, who claim to have been defending Slobodan Milosevic, who were basically Nazis or defenders of Nazis. Some very interesting articles, and also some articles on the current regime in Belgrade, which is essentially NATO appointed, put in there with NATO money. Anyway, I said I was going to have a look at CompuSerb and the Serbian Defence League. Well, I provide links to their sites. I mean, Serbian Defence League documenting Zionist genocides on Serbs. There's a whole heap of nonsense here. It has this classic furphy, Judea declares war on Germany, from back in 1933. It says here, in 1933, Judea declared a war when Germans wanted to take their country back from Jews who got control of the economy with cheap money after World War I. Blah, 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 blah. With one thing, Judea as a country doesn't exist anymore. And that was basically an organised boycott by a world jury against the Nazi regime. And this was a good thing, sorry. Basically what the so-called Serbian Defence League is essentially saying in Orwellian terms is war is peace, freedom is slavery, and the regime which attacked Serbia, that is Nazi Germany and its fascist allies, just wanted to take their country back from Jews. And there's lots of other nonsense in here, and CompuSerb is even more blatantly fascistic. There's even a thing here saying, nominating Mel Gibson for US president. And I provide a link to spirituallysmart.com, a website which documents a lot of the crimes of the Vatican. And Mel Gibson is basically what's known as a temporal coadjutor for the Jesuit order. There's lots of information on him and many other characters who are basically front people for the Vatican. I would strongly recommend people go and look at that site. Actually, there's a lot of very good information, even if you don't agree with this particular guy's religious views. The actual facts he documents are very important. And CompuSerb links to the National Socialist Alliance. I mean, it's blatant. They're more or less telling you they're Nazis. The only thing missing is the swastika, and I'd say the only reason they've omitted putting a swastika in is because then it would be a blatant giveaway. because Serbs in general are aware of what the swastika represents. Anyway, that's my piece. I can follow up with further information. If Orthodox Dog wants to issue a rebuttal to this, it's free to do so. Anyway, I'll just urge Serbs and like Serbian patriots and people showing solidarity with them, please do not buy this nonsense. It is poison, and it is dangerous poison. Don't buy it, please. Catch you later.